Dutch Mobile Philippines. My name is Jason Manantay from the Tech Lifestyle Show on AMC and also from the website mynamesbell.com, and I'm also a proud member of CyberPress. Today is the kickoff celebration of the 20th anniversary of the Internet in the Philippines. Before we proceed to the ceremony, I would like again to advise our media friends to reserve their question for a Q&A portion later in the program. And also, I would like to remind everyone that we are live via Newsstream on DWDB, mga katropa, News Bites on Air, and also the roadwriter.net and digitalspidey.com. We'd like to also invite everyone to follow CyberPress on Twitter at CyberPressPH. Now, before we proceed to the ceremony, I'd like to call on Mr. Paulo Montesillo, the Vice President of CyberPress.
Distinguished speakers and guests, colleagues in the media, and friends from the blogging community, friends, guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome everyone to our event. Kicking off our program for the day is one of the most prominent tech journalists in the country. She's been covering technology and gadgets for longer than she's willing to admit. She was editor at Gadgets Magazine, the first tech publication in the Philippines. She was also at E3, which later became Techie.com.ph. Last year, she was also co-host of the Unbox.ph podcast, which at last year's Globe Tattoo Awards was named the best tech blog/podcast in the Philippines. Co-host in Today, she is tech editor at Yahoo Philippines, here to give her opening remarks. Our dear leader and my good friend, CyberPress President Alora Aguilera.
Mrs. Mortese. Distinguished government and private sector guests, our friends from the blogging community, from the media, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. We're all gathered here today to celebrate a truly momentous occasion. Of course, it's the 20th anniversary of the Philippine Internet. And what a 20 years it has been, right? Yeah. We first met the Internet during its awkward MIRC chatroom phase. You remember MIRC? Yes.
Hindi ko naabutan yun ah. Wala pa ako nun.
We were all strangers then. And we have like awkward...
Grade 3 yata ako, grade 3.
There's, ano ba yun? Hashtag, right, #Allgear21 or SexyKillen32. Diba? And then, gusto ka nun, diba? And then, dito nagsimula yung hashtag.
Facebook na kami.
Sorry. Okay, Justin Bieber na ano, ganun. So today, the Internet has matured so much. No longer afraid to show people its real face, it has become addicted to selfies. It's very popular today. The Internet also went through a rebellious phase. During the Arab Spring, barely 2 years ago, it helped topple several governments. And today the tables have been turned, the governments are now spying on us. And like any decent 20-year-old yuppie, the Internet has started to make its own money. Now we have Bitcoin. We have friends from Bitcoin Philippines here. Hello. Indeed, the Internet has changed so much, and we along with it. In the Philippines, the Internet plays a key role in the employment of about 1 million people in the multi-billion-dollar business process outsourcing business or industry. Through government initiatives, it also helps us monitor with a fair amount of reliability, whether nationwide in the traffic situation in Metro Manila, for example. Over a third of the Philippine population is on the Internet. We, as a people, are among the world's biggest consumers of video and music content, both through legitimate and admittedly illegitimate channels. We are also among the most active on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. Of course, who can't forget Friendster and Multiply? Yeah? Oo. Hindi naman. Ayaw naman. Ayaw kami grabe. Walang aamin. Anyhow, Friendster, Multiply, we made those two networks part of our turf as well. The internet also holds a special significance for many Filipino families who have, members who are working abroad. Like my family, we're scattered around the globe. Because of the internet, nearly each and every one of the 10 million OFWs stationed in various places around the globe are now just one video call away. So it's just very easy for us to do that now, to communicate with them. In the short span of 20 years, our society has changed so much because of the internet. What the next 2 decades hold is still anybody's guess. At our forum here today, we have a lineup of top caliber speakers. Thank you for saying yes. And some of them will reminisce about what the last 20 years has brought us, while some of us will try to give a preview of what will come next. Whatever the internet holds for the future, we here at CyberPress can't wait to see it. Again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming here, and good morning.
Thank you once again to the lovely and alluring Alora Guerrero. Now, our next speaker is the founder of Mozcom and is widely known as the father of Philippine Internet. After spending more than a decade in academia, he joined the government, first as a vice president of the Development Academy of the Philippines, and then as a managing director of the National Computer Center during the Coria Aquino administration. It was toward the end of President Aquino's term that Dr. Torres saw the opportunity and began his campaign to bring internet to the Philippines. After 20 years of government service, he became fully involved in the private ICT practice until now. He joined the National Steel Corporation, first as a consultant and then later as the IT head. Co-founded the Philippines' first commercial ISP, widely known as Mozcom now, in 1994, from where he retired as president, and that position that he is holding for the past 12 years. Just in case some of us don't know or remember, the CyberPress, our organization, awarded Dr. Bill Torres a Lifetime Achievement Award more than 4 years ago on December 17, 2009. Okay guys, it's an honor to have him here today. So everyone, please put your hands together for Mr. Bill Torres.
Good morning. Good morning. I'd like to start with a word. And I thank you to guess the word. I'm trying to get back at your president because he played the word game with me yesterday. So I'm thinking, what do you say? Getting back at her, at you. Okay.
Yes, sir.
I don't know if you've heard of a story. A young guy came into a restaurant in a resort and he asked, "Do you have Wi-Fi here?" "What? Wi-Fi? Do you have Wi-Fi here?" "Here." "You mean Wi-Fi?" Because everybody was looking at him already. And he said, "Yes, Wi-Fi." And now that I have your attention, this is what I'm going to tell you. So you know one word, Wi-Fi. Okay, I've been assigned to say something about, or look back. And I thought that it was too big a an arena if I were to tell you a lot that I have seen. Therefore, I will choose to do it in a way where in a few minutes, I don't know how many minutes I have, I can have my few words and a few stories. Okay? Now, I'd like you to react to certain words that I'm going to say. Alora included. Papyrus. Hieroglyphics.
Egyptian.
Gothenburg. That's you, di ba? Babbage.
Church band.
Come on! You're supposed to know all those. This one, I will not go, I have a lot of words, but how about this one? Shockley.
Shock me.
Transistor.
Yes, this is radio.
Not the radio, it's the technology. Okay? Actually, he was one of 3 people who invented the transistor in the 40s, I think, late 40s. And then there was a German, I think, who claimed that he also had a patent for the same thing. Now, I promised a friend that I will mention his name, Edison. Not him.
Toma.
What do you associate words?
Light bulb. Light bulb.
Light bulb, recording, diba? And so on. What am I leading to? I'm leading to technologies that together have converged into what we have now. Right? So what I'd like to do, just have a few stories. Before 20 years ago, I just want to share with you certain things that you probably don't know, or probably some people have twisted it about. But I thought that it is worth knowing some of those things because somehow it reflects the present situation. Okay? Before 1994, the Philippines was a poor country. It's still poor, but it was much, much poorer then. Can you imagine, at some point in time, we would only have $50,000 to import computers. At some point in time in the late 80s, during Forrest's administration. Okay. I was head of the NCC, a little bit later than that, and we could not even buy laptops. The government will not allow us to buy laptops. Okay. And I, together with some people in the private sector, I arranged for a rent-to-own arrangement of a number of laptops for the National Computer Center. And I had a case against me. Okay? Of course I won, because they thought that I spent money to the disadvantage of the government. But I fought that case and we won. Okay? And there are people here who can corroborate that thing. There were many things that happened before 1994, but at the latter part of Cory's administration, I was privileged to be part of a mission to go to the US to talk about certain projects that we could do in the Philippines. And at that time, walang internet. Diba? So, ano yung project na naisip namin? Well, I proposed that somehow somebody should give us a grant to put up 94 satellites all over the country so that we could broadcast educational material to these 94 satellite dishes from Manila, and then of course do something big for education. Well, that was too big a project at that time. Walang pera. Okay? But in Washington, I met 2 people, one of whom helped me come up with a grant of $25,000 to to do some studies. And that came out as the Government Communications Network Project. Nothing happened to that because it was overtaken by many other things like the internet. But there was some effort. But the most important thing that happened was this. A European who was married to a Filipina was in the audience, and he told me, I will introduce you to the executive director of the National Science Foundation. And that guy has come to the Philippines. Many people probably know that. Goldstein was the name. But he brought me, this friend, husband of a Filipina, brought me to the office of Dr. Goldstein, and I learned at that point in time that they were thinking of commercializing the internet. Thinking, notice, they were just thinking. And so when I came home, I brought up the idea that maybe we should already connect to the internet, because pretty soon it will not just be the universities and the government who will be using it, because it's going to be commercialized. I learned, for example, that Malaysia was already cooking up a hookup. And I didn't even know about these things before I went there. So to me, that was the important accomplishment I had, to have known that the internet was going to become a commercialized infrastructure. So, to make a long story short, we worked on it, and by 1994, we have it. Okay, so that part of the story should be written because perhaps there are certain similar things today that may be discovered so that we can move further on. Okay, and I will allude to some of these things. But let me now go to the assignment of looking at back. If I take a look at the progress that we've made, I think everybody knows that we have had progress. But if you measure our progress against the progress of other countries, well, we are ahead when it comes to texting. I think we're even ahead in selfie phenomenon, right? And we are a leader in terms of IT professionals. I think we do a lot in video and other things. But how come we are next to the bottom in ASEAN in terms of network readiness index? How come? Number one. Number two, how come we are below the middle group? We belong to the bottom half of the 140 or so countries in the world in terms of global competitive index. We are number 86. And I'm afraid we will be stuck in that rank for a long time unless we discover something to change our course. There was a girl, a professional like you, who gave a lecture, I think this was late last year, out of Kuala Lumpur. And he was lecturing to a group of students in Zamboanga from Kuala Lumpur. And I don't know if you know this, but I picked up certain things that she said. And she said, Singapore is way up there. Malaysia is number 27. We are number 86. And we are about bottom half. At least we're halfway there. You think we can move further? If we are just to catch up with these guys and we don't change the way we do things, we will not catch up with them because they are also moving on. So the question is, we need to change the way we do things. We cannot have progress individually, by companies, by groups, and so on. We can have little progress, I think, But we can have bigger progress if we do things together. And I believe there is a way of shifting our gears towards that. So therefore, let me be faithful to my assignment and say, I'm taking a look back 20 years, but I'm looking at certain things in certain ways. I'm looking at the dynamics, the tensions, and the designs of certain things that happened in the past. Take a look at the use of the word convergence. We were concerned about convergence very early in that period of 20 years. The telcos were a different group of people. The ISPs were another group of people. When we meet, we're not discussing things in unison. We were fighting each other. We were not cohesive. There were many reasons for that. We were governed by laws that were old laws. Radio laws, 1935. Okay, and many other laws were not there to help us converge together, while other countries were already doing it. So we were constrained by so many things in our culture and in our way of doing things. So convergence slowly happened. It could have happened faster. And that, I think, is what we need to discover. How can we make convergence happen faster? Okay. I will not pursue that, but let me bring up another thread. How come, in spite of our professionals, in spite of the training that we have, in spite of the progress that we have in terms of apps, in terms of technology, gadgets, etc., how come we cannot still improve our education, we cannot improve our productivity in farms, productivity of our small and medium-scale enterprises? We need to do a lot of things for us to become competitive, not only in our own country, but globally. We're trying, but we are not trying enough. We need to discover different ways of bringing about, massive efforts at moving massive numbers of people to use the technology that we already love and we like, so that they can also be with us and we can all move together towards better achievements for all of us. Well, the last word that I'm going to mention to you is called infrastructure. This year, a group of people are working at infrastructure. You know why we're only 86 and seem to be where we are stuck in this global ranking? The reason is infrastructure. There are three big obstacles in doing business in our country, and this has remained for many years. One is corruption, the other one is bureaucracy, and the third one is infrastructure. We have advanced a little bit in the first two, bureaucracy and corruption, but I think many people will not agree. There's still corruption, but I think we have improved. But in infrastructure, we have not improved. We are stuck in the mud. Okay? And in particular, ICT infrastructure. This is the reason why we remain at that second to the bottom ranking. This is the reason why we haven't advanced enough in terms of competitiveness. And that is one of the main things I think that we need to discover and work on. How do we improve our ICT infrastructure together with improving our energy infrastructure, our transportation infrastructure, and many other infrastructures that we have, so that we can unleash the potential of our farmers, of our small and medium-scale industry, of our schools, etc. So that's the message that I'd like to give to you. But it's not all, I didn't want to make you sad, I want to make you happy. But I'd like you to be happy in knowing that if we do things differently, we could get there. I'll share with you something that makes me very happy. Number one, yesterday I was in a board meeting, and to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the Philippines, we have approved a link to the farmers of Halahala in Rizal. Somebody gave a check, 30,000 pesos. We provide a 2 megabit link to a school in Halahala, and we will reach the farmers through that school. In addition to training agri-business students who have finished high school and who would like to go into not necessarily farming, but the business of farming. Okay, that's one good news. I think the other good news that I saw when I woke up this morning is something that was posted on page 20 PH. Jan said, was our franchisee in General Santos almost 20 years ago, 18 years ago. That guy became the father of General Santos Internet. Okay? Because he has put up an IT building, he has a call center. So that's what he has made the dial-up point of presence, one of 75 points of presence of Moscom many years ago. It has changed the picture of General Santos in more than what I could have imagined. I didn't know about this until I opened 20PH Internet this morning. And so I have more good news. I think you should be happy. Let us discover together new things that we need to do in order that we can make the next 20 years the happiest time for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Bill Torres. That's our history lesson right there. Okay. Before we proceed, we'd like to remind everyone that we are live by Newsstream on DWTV, News Bites on Air, theroguewriter.net, and digitalspidey.com. And we would like to thank LG Mobile Philippines for Vision 2020, Looking Back and Looking Ahead by Cyber Press. Now, to find out more about the plans of the government about IT in the country, may we have on stage from DOST ICTO, Mr. Mon Ibrahim.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to acknowledge, of course, President of Cyber Press, Laura over there. Of course, my mentor, the grandfather. The funny thing is, when he was head of this National Computer Center, I was acting with the private sector. That was my previous life, and the National Computer Center was actually one of my biggest account there. So I was actually selling to Dr. Torres. Now I'm with the same office, okay, and other people like Popoy Claramal here is actually the one selling to me now. By the way, kung hindi nyo nahalata, Dr. Torres actually was trying to tell us a joke kanina, hindi lang natin nakuha. So it's very, very obvious that actually, delivering jokes is not one of his expertise. Anyway, I'm supposed to be here to read the speech of Executive Director of the ICT office under Secretary Louis Casambre. And this is really a speech that siya mismo gumawa. And the guy is so busy. He should have flown last Sunday pa to Singapore to attend an ASEAN ICT senior officials meeting. But he flew out yesterday morning and came back last night because of his ganun ka-busy yung taga-gobyerno. A lot of exciting things are happening actually. I've been with government since 2006 and the last 3 years have been days, friends and days for all of us. So I'm pleased to read his speech. And I quote, members and officers of the ICT Journalists Association of the Philippines, stalwarts of the ICT industry, a pleasant good morning to all of you. I would like to thank Cyberpress for inviting us to this event. Yusek Casambre regrets he cannot be here with us today due to a conflict with the oath-taking of the new Public Advisory Council for the 2016 national election. That-cover niya yun, pero hintayin mo na matapos ko itong speech niya. I am happy to deliver this message to all of you. We celebrate this week a milestone in our entry into the Internet age. It was 20 years ago, on March 29, that the Philippines became connected to the Internet. As some of you might be aware, PhilNet, which we now call PHNet, became the network of academic institutions that first connected to the Internet. PhilNet was originally a DOST project implemented by the Advanced Science and Technology Institute, or what we now call ASTI. Though it is only coincidental, it is heartwarming nonetheless to tell you that actually Yusek Casambre was at that time the head of ASTI. On behalf of the Information Communication Technology Office of DOST, it is with great honor and pleasure that I congratulate the ICT Journalists Association of the Philippines for this successful event. Madami naman pera ng mga cyberpress.
Thank you, LG. Thank you,
Thanks
LG.
of LG. Ang ganda yata paparako nila ni Lord niya. And for steadfastly helping the country move forward through professional and effective coverage of important and critical Internet issues. 20 years of having the Internet has moved the economy in an unprecedented giga-leaps and giga-bounds. Because of the Internet, the country's talented workforce and other competitive advantages have shown through. Today, we are the world's preferred site for IT business process management, or what we call IT BPM. We are the leaders, or in fact, number 2 in the area of non-voice IT BPM services such as software development, health information management, animation, and games development. Something that's very, very close to my heart because that's actually my project. And unbeknownst to many, we are in fact a significant player for the high-tech knowledge outsourcing with activities in hardware and firmware design for many things that we think are actually designed abroad. Okay? And he can really say this because before rejoining government in 2011, he used to head the R&D arm of ROM in the Philippines. BPM, the Philippine BPM industry is on its way to overtaking OFW remittances as the #1 contributor to our country's GDP. By the end of the year, 900,000 Filipinos, or rather, by the end of this of 2014, 1 million Filipinos will no longer need to seek employment abroad, but will instead enjoy the fruits of Internet technology by having high-paying jobs in their own country. The Internet has also created a new breed of self-employed Filipinos doing freelance jobs for clients abroad. And this is actually a subject matter that was highlighted in a recent interaction article. This impact sourcing industry has almost as many workers as our IT/BPM industry. And the figure is actually more than 900,000 now. Most of these are actually outside of Metro Manila and even Metro Cebu. And we can expect this to grow continually in the coming years. There are three big players in this sector, the online jobs portal. And I think in the next couple of weeks, they're going to announce the merger of two of these big players. I cannot actually say the name yet. There are many beautiful stories of success in the IT/BPM and impact sourcing industries, and media support and attention to these important stories have done a lot to multiply our gains. It is unfortunate that there remain some sectors who continue to hold biases and believe the various wrong information surrounding work and circumstances related to these industries. We are thus working closely with our partner agencies and the LGUs to make sure we create a safe and secure ecosystem around workplaces of employees in the sector. All this is for further enhancing the multiplier effect this industry has made in the economy. Although the internet has brought about massive benefits, we should still concern ourselves with the digital divide. Despite all the efforts undertaken, and this was actually highlighted by Dr. Torres a while ago, it is our contention that without bold new steps, the divide will only get bigger. According to DepEd's 2013 figures, only 20% of its public elementary schools are located in areas with internet access, and only 10% of public elementary schools have internet connection. Hard to believe, but it's true. The Philippines' geographic status as an archipelago presents a challenge that requires out-of-the-box solutions. Our ongoing TV White Space program is such. It is an ambitious program which aims to provide the country's internet providers with the means to deliver public services through the internet to everyone. And our TV White Space pilot project is the largest TV White Space deployment today in Asia. TV White Space refers to an ever-increasing number of technologies that use the vacant, wasted frequencies located between broadcast TV channels to provide wireless data connectivity or internet connectivity. Our vision is to leverage this wasted national asset to reach the remote communities in the country and provide essential public services such as healthcare, education, and all other government services. This, we believe, will lead to socio-economic development, or what we now call inclusive growth, or brethren, on the disadvantaged side of the widening digital divide. While the internet has brought us tremendous benefits and we look to it to further our aspirations, it is also being used by malevolent elements who peddle and spread disinformation, half-truths, and outright lies, and fraud in capital letters. It is easy to destroy people's reputation and companies' images built through the years with one keystroke that is forwarded around the world in milliseconds and believed naively by unsuspecting readers. And this is just one of the darker aspects of the internet that we know, that we all love as well. That is why it is so important to promote responsible internet use. And this is where we believe our colleagues from the Cyber Press can actually help us. Allow me now to thank you, the Cyber Press, for your contribution in protecting this invaluable resource we call the internet, so that it may continue to enrich our people's lives and aid us in achieving our nation's aspirations. As to the future of the internet, I'm sure there will be more surprises, more discoveries. Even science and political forecasters will be unable to participate. As before coming over, I actually came from a I was at the Asian Institute Management Conference Center because this is going to be our first launch pad for the startups that we're actually trying to assist to mentor in collaboration with the Philippine Software Industry Association. And the first 3 entries is actually a competition. We're going to have just 10 these startups included in this year's mentorship program. I think there are about 30 plus that are competing for the 10 slots. And the first 4 entries that I saw kanina, they were so exciting. These concepts and ideas. So we really believe that in the next 5, 10 years, we will have something as big as Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter that is actually developed and coming out from the Philippines. And with that, I end the message of Yusek Louis Casabre. Mabuhay at maraming salamat.
Thank you, Mr. Juan Ibrahim. To everyone who just joined in, this is Vision 2020, looking back and looking ahead, presented by CyberPress and LG Mobile Philippines. Sila po yung sponsor for this event. Really, we'd like to thank everyone who are tweeting about this event using the hashtags 20PHNet and Vision 2020. We'd like also to encourage everyone to follow the live stream on bit.ly/cyberpress. And again, a reminder to my media friends out there, please reserve your questions or Q&A after the event. And for those of you who don't like to join on the forum, you can send in your questions, write it on a piece of paper, and give it to us here, and we will read your questions later. Okay? Now, to talk about the internet infrastructure and connectivity in the Philippines, let's call on from Globe Telecom, Mr. Fernando Cocoy Claraval.
Good morning, everyone. It's always a pleasure talking to the press and to our colleagues in this industry. So many stories with Dr. Bill. Yes, during this time I was also selling to him some 2500 routers and some dial-up modems. And a little bit of trivia. Yes, back in '94, you did light up the first internet link, right? Your engineer, Benji Tan, is the guy who did that. He's with our team now. We hired him to make sure that we continue to innovate in this space. I just remember back in about 5 years after that, one of the first things that we did for the internet as Globe Telecom, I was still a vendor selling infrastructure, was to light up the first gigabit core in the Philippines. It was really something that was an achievement. Kasi imagine that was like 5 years after the first thing was established. It was the first gigabit IP core where we linked up 3 locations in the city, thereby establishing because the internet was really going very fast. So today I'd like to talk about this topic, as you can see here, and I had a hard time really trying to figure out what's the best title. And eventually I said, really, the best years are ahead of us. Where we are today is certainly an achievement, but it's really, there's still a lot more to come. So can we just move to the next slide? I wanted to open up with this quote from the CEO of Facebook. We're very proud, not just because Globe was mentioned, but it's really because the Philippines was highlighted in the premier event, a global event for all of the mobile operators in the world. And it just goes to show how the Philippines is actually at the forefront of innovation. Make no mistake, we may be behind on some things, and I certainly agree with Dr. Torres here on some of the stuff he said. But as Filipinos, as a community, as a people, I think we're doing pretty well. there's a lot of things to improve. But this one is one case where we're trying to push adoption of internet, and starting with Facebook, of course, which is the most popular application anyway. When you talk about do you access the internet, no, people don't understand that, but when you ask, do you access Facebook, which they don't know it's via the internet, they say yes, right? So this, when he mentioned about this, I think it, again, reinforced the Philippines in the map in terms of digital and internet technologies. From that same event, we talked about global trends in mobile connectivity. Kahit paano natin tingnan, mobile is going to be the driving technology to push internet further all the way to each Filipino in this country. It's the only way, because that's how our country is set up. We are a bunch of, 7,000 islands. It's impossible to actually reach it by a wired connection. And here, as you can see, we now have about in the last 4 years, 3.2 billion people connected. By 2018, we'll pass the 4 billion mark. And we're just talking about just humans. We're not even talking about the cows that you will connect, the things, and that would reach all the way, as you can see dito, they estimate it back in the 8-9 billion. Who knows what will it be? In fact, I was reading earlier, couple of use cases for connected things and devices. Maybe you've heard about connecting cows, where they actually trap the cows that are due for mating season, and they attach some devices, all connected back to the cloud and to the internet as well. And the new one that I read earlier, which was very interesting, was automating sprinklers. Diba today when you look at a typical sprinkler, diba paikot lang siya, diba? It's actually a waste of water. This is just sprinkling all around. Walang intelligence whatsoever. If you try to search on the internet called Droplet, there was this inventor who did this device where it's intelligent enough to shoot water to specific plants. And not just that, it also analyzes, it's connected back to the cloud. It analyzes weather, soil quality, the type of plants that you have, and it adjusts the amount of water that you're putting in. And that alone, imagine the possibilities of saving water, being able to deploy that in places where water is very scarce. And that's powered by the internet. And that's where you would see a lot of these things up in store for us. After we've connected every Filipino, guess what? You would connect things and non-humans. So let me spend some time talking about the drivers, and I'm going to focus on the Philippines. Some of the numbers here is really just a proxy or a snapshot, but it can be a representation really of what's happening in the Philippines now. Kasi we do conduct our own set of studies, and so just look at, just for context, more of yung profile, no? Not much on the absolute numbers. First of all, I'd like to maybe just look back and see that this country is really we're really on a roll, diba? Although the past 2 quarters were a bit down because of a couple of things, in Zamboanga, earthquake, Yolanda. From a globe standpoint, we fully recovered from the Yolanda incident. It was a pain because there's a lot of infrastructure that was damaged, but we fully recovered. But even then, you're seeing here that internet usage, before that. Okay. You see that internet usage, even if we've had maybe 2 quarters of decline, and this is a very recent study that we did, you still see growth in terms of adoption. The split is about 2/3 of internet usage happens in urban areas, including Metro Manila, right? But the good thing about here, and Dr. Torres alluded to it earlier, is reaching to the rural parts of the Philippines. And as you can see, if you look at the chart, the rural portion is actually growing, which is good. meaning there's adoption happening not just on urban. Urban continues to be stable, but it's the rural piece that's actually growing. Now, and who are the people that use the internet? Okay, if you are between 41 to 50 years old, you're either a housewife or a working youth, you are the group that is starting to grow and grow in terms of using the internet. Okay? And no surprise that it's Metro Manila, of course, that has the bulk of the users, followed by, of course, North Central Luzon and, of course, South Luzon muna and North Central Luzon. Visayas Mindanao, well, not as big, but continues to grow. And in an equal split between male and female. Siguro wala namang surprise dun, ano? I think both use Facebook, for whatever reason that they use it. Naalala ko tuloy yung, I don't know if you've heard of that Facebook application which they actually pulled out. Have you heard of that application where you can actually match in Facebook? Match, quote unquote, but you wouldn't know if they said yes or not. But if they said yes, you would know. Hindi nyo nagigets kasi masabi ka na. Kasi, it was an application that they actually pulled out, but never mind. Kasi hindi bagay dito sana. Okay, and then, you have really, when you look at the segments, is really the business users and, no surprise, the youth. I mean, these two segments is really going to drive up internet adoption. And so, whether you're a vendor, you're a provider, ito yun. This is the target segments. Okay? Next. And obviously, it's really the tablets, the smartphones that is also driving adoption. In terms of brands, and it's no surprise, nothing against LG, thank you for sponsoring, but the top two brands is still Samsung and Apple in this space. But I'm sure many brands today, we mentioned na dito some of the other local and Chinese brands, are gonna make a very good headway. Our last estimate in terms of median price of tablets is actually at the 9,000 plus peso level. Imagine if that will go down all the way back to $100 or so. Imagine yung penetration, which is yung ginagawa ng Chinese brands, right? So that is one key driver for adoption. Next. And it's no surprise that when you talk about these devices, these devices are actually being shared at home. And what does that mean? It means now you get more people to actually try the internet. When I go home, this tablet is confiscated by my son. Kaya ang dami niyang nakalagay dito. And I'm sure most of you also would experience that. The average tablet age is about 10 months, and people would upgrade. Okay? So the device manufacturers, that's actually good news for you, because this is the next wave of gadgets. So let me move on and talk about the Philippines from an infrastructure standpoint. And I agree with Dr. Torres kanina. We're so underinvested in ICT. I think the government na lang, and I don't know if Mom is still here, but we were mentioning earlier, there's a big budget waiting for ICT. No? Penetration natin sa broadband, when I say broadband, I mean high speed. We're nowhere near the levels we want to. I mean, there's so much demand that whatever you put out gets consumed. Diba? Which is actually good, because people are really hungry for high-speed connectivity. And if you look at if you look at the landscape, at least in our own analytics, traffic is still US-centric, close to 77%. What it means is, maybe as a country, we really consume US content. I hope we would have consumed more local content, just like other countries. But this is the reality. You know, Facebook na lang, di ba? This is like back in 2013. If they did another snapshot this year, I'm sure, or maybe I bet, that we would have actually gone up na. Remember the Facebook, the first slide that I showed? I can't imagine how many users tried Facebook because of that partnership we had. So itong 30 million na nakikita niyo dito, guess what? That has gone up. I just can't tell you the number because I actually don't know. So dami. We do see growth in Asian traffic, meaning there's traffic now that's moving within a lot more in Asia. Maybe compared to Europe, usually our European traffic goes to the US. It's really just because of the way the cable networks worldwide are set up. It's actually faster to go via that route. Of course, there are new investments coming in, so eventually that will improve in terms of quality. And as you probably have known for some time now, that we are the second top internet user in Southeast Asia. Okay. Next. I wanted to show you a chart. Now this is our capacity. I mean, not to brag about it, but it's really more of just keeping up the demand on subscribers' thirst for higher bandwidth. We just did like a 7-year snapshot where we start. I mean, 2007. I mean, you can't even read how many gig is that. What, 5? Siguro, 5 gig. And now we're about 300 gig in terms of IP capacity. This is capacity connected to different peering points all over the world. In the US, Japan, Singapore. If you add them all up, that's just us. The PLDT group also is investing heavily. So if you can imagine, us plus them, I mean, sino pa ba yung nag-i-invest ng ganun kalaki for the Philippines, di ba? It's just the two of us. And you can imagine the amount of capability and capacity we can drive. Next. Now, those capacity is useless if you didn't have a network. Meaning, it's like, if you try to do an analogy, these are the Manila water pipes going to your houses, di ba? You have to have these big pipes connecting to the different countries. I mean, I know it's a lot of lines there, but the key takeaway dito is, it's hard to shut down the Philippines. Those of you who've covered, what? About 6 years ago, when we had that major earthquake, we didn't really shut down as a country, but we were fully degraded in terms of capacity. This setup, it will be very hard to shut down the Philippines because of so many cables, multiple landing stations, and this infrastructure has helped drive the BPO, the contact center business as well, because they need this infrastructure to deliver services to companies in the US, in Europe, or in Asia. I guess what I'm trying to say is, we've gone a long way from the first, Dr. Bill, 64K ba yun? Yung sinata? From the first 64K BPS, linear, one line from the Philippines out to the US, di ba? That one line to something like 300 gig of capacity and all of these multiple lines that you see here, or fiber connections. And it's just our first 20 years. Kung baga sa, adult. Parang, pa lang tayo, nagsisimula pa lang, young adult. Okay. Imagine what the next 20 years will bring us. I'm going to talk about a little bit about that later. Next. Okay, now, of course, sabi nga ni Bill, we still need to fix some things. Now, one of the things that we need to improve on is local interconnectivity. And I know it's already at the top in terms of the government agenda. And Simon, this thing, we really need government help dito. Local connectivity. The government has OpenIX, as you know, right? Globe is an active supporter. In fact, we're hosting the OpenIX. But we really need more participation from the rest of the providers. Why? Because today, about 23% of traffic is domestic. Although I mentioned earlier, about 77% still goes to the US, right? Pero there's about a quarter of traffic that is really just within the Philippines. So if that were the case, then why do I need to send my traffic all the way back to Singapore or the US just to reach somebody in the Philippines? Diba? It's so inefficient. And probably that's one of the things that's contributing to network readiness, diba? I mean, dapat by default, diba, let's interconnect